Chief Meteorologist Greg Fischel told us, along with the entire staff in the Weather Center, this was coming. Greg, it did, and it has come with somewhat of a vengeance. Hundreds of cars absolutely at a standstill right there. Many of them, folks driving those cars may be listening to us this afternoon. You're in for the long haul there, because this is indicative of what we are seeing around this area right now. We just sat down here a moment ago and we just want to remind people of why we do this as a public service already. I know this is a big storm, but do we need to preempt everything on television? Folks, this is reality TV as we haven't seen.
Bringing the big stories home.
Whenever there is a major national story, some of the first who come to the aid to volunteer to help are North Carolinians.
WRAL News.
We're in an area that's less than a quarter of a mile away from the Navy Yard. But as you can see by what's happening here, even at this hour, after the shootings happened at 8:20 this morning, this is still a very active crime scene. This is the sign of the times tonight. Local businesses closed because this is the sign of the times tonight. Everywhere near the Naval Yard, police and extra security. Buses running well into the night, taking Naval Yard workers to their families 12 hours after the shootings. Good evening, I'm David Crabtree, and for the next half hour, we are going to hear from the 4 leading Republican candidates who want the chance to challenge Democrat incumbent U.S. Senator Kay Hagan in November. We're going to focus on a number of issues, including immigration, the Affordable Care Act, and campaign financing, just to name a few. How would you vote to specifically deal with those millions of people who are currently here illegally tonight? Ms. Grant.
I've been very, very clear on this issue every time I've spoken about it. For me, we need to take away the entitlements
Does that mean
they
you would
automatically
deport them?
Yes, if they're caught, we deport them.
And then who pays for that deportation? I mean,
Who's
we're talking 12 million people.
David, who's paying for them now? We're paying for their health care, we're paying for their HUD housing.
All of you want to increase the size of government and government spending. So you talk about deporting 12 million people. That's a huge cost to this country. Well, several big races tonight, but none larger than the Republican primary for the U.S. Senate. Not all of the votes are in, but enough are in that House Speaker Thom Tillis has been declared the winner with about 45% of the vote. He will face Kay Hagan in the November election. Laura Leslie, who is at the Tillis headquarters. Laura, I know they're excited, expect you to hear from the House Speaker just any moment.
As millions of people around the world say goodbye to Nelson Mandela, WRAL's David Crabtree brings the story home from South Africa. Stories of sacrifice and special tributes to Mandela's life. Live reports continue tonight on WRAL News.
For years, and definitely again this week, we have heard Nelson Mandela described as compassionate, a quiet, charismatic, and definitely controversial. There's no question that he is an icon for our times. And today we talked with people in this area about what life might have been like had there been no Nelson Mandela. At times, the line seemed endless. For up to 9 hours, some of these people waited under a hot summer sun. Some very young, some more mature, all on the same road of remembrance.
We've been waiting for over 8 hours.
5 hours, just over almost 5.5 hours.
There was singing, smiles. Some gave us the well-known Mandela salute of freedom. Each of these people with their own story.
It feels like you lost a grandfather in a way, you know. And when we came here and we saw him, you know, it was bittersweet.
Most amazing.
It was, you want to cry and you want to celebrate at the same time.
You grew to learn him, or grew to love him. As a child, you didn't understand exactly, but as you got older, you understood more. Nelson Mandela served his time in 3 prisons here in the Cape Town area, the vast majority of that time on notorious Robben Island. We're about to take you inside to show you where he lived. We want to tell you that because of significant government restrictions, we were only able to use a still camera and a small video camera. Nonetheless, what you're about to see is impactful. From a distance, Robben Island masquerades as a resort, a beautiful mirage sitting atop the South Atlantic. And even though no one boarding this boat believes the illusion, we traveled these 7 miles from Cape Town as free people, carefree. As we approach the island, the onboard chatter begins to fade.
We're here, and it's daunting. We are literally stepping into history. The Dutch opened this prison in the 17th century. Before we reach the prison cells, we're reminded the 8 square miles have always been a prison. Lepers and the mentally ill were brought here to die. Many did, and inmates were forced to dig the graves. This is where Nelson Mandela worked 8 hours a day. The lime quarry. No eye protection or a mask from the dust. He suffered lung disease for years. This guide is a former prisoner. Like Mandela, was here for his politics. Other famous inmates also served time here. Robert Sobukwe was here for years. He was never formally charged with anything. This was Mandela's garden. He hid manuscripts between vegetables. Beneath his cell window, a small memorial. And inside, reminders of his death as we see how he lived. A pallet for a bed. This bucket was his toilet. He was forced to clean it. The bars of Robben Island kept Mandela here physically, yet his mind and spirit were elsewhere. After he was released, his memories found new life on paper. He painted, and these lithographs, owned by Capital Broadcasting Company, are the work of Nelson Mandela, memories of his beloved homeland that no prison, no guards, no threats, no intimidation could or would ever erase. Kudos and my personal thanks to photographer Pete James for putting that piece together. Much more from what Pete and I saw in still photography posted on WRAL.com. The solemn procession began at 7:30 this morning. Led by the South African military, the coffin slowly made its way along this road on Nelson Mandela's family farm. Once inside this dome, some 4,500 people heard speeches and eulogies.
Thank you for being everything we wanted and needed in a leader.
Choir sang, and some of the faithful danced. There was also singing and dancing inside this Johannesburg restaurant. All of the waitstaff wore black today, honoring their former president with this song of faith.
He's been sick for so long, and now it's time to let him go and rest. He's done a lot for us. We are all united now because of that.
He was an angel to us. He helped us, and he's been through so much for us. And it's amazing how one man can do so much.
As the staff prepared for a big birthday party, they watched the funeral on this monitor. As they said goodbye, they also thought about the future. Are you hopeful what you feel today, what you sense today in this country is going to last?
For his sake, I hope and I pray that everyone keeps the unity and everyone continues what Mandela has started.
Now that was a man.
Hours after the service began, the Mandela family said its formal goodbye. And while military shots rang out in the last formal salute, these young South Africans gave a salute of their own.
So I hope that we do take over from where he left. We can take it further, take it through.
For me, I'm so lucky to have Mandela in my life. He did all the best. We are united now, all because of him.
It was June 6, 1944, the largest seaborne invasion in history, and the cost was great, enormous. Thousands of troops killed. However, so was the eventual victory. And tonight, we join the world in honoring the heroes of D-Day. Around this Army veterans' house in Franklinton are reminders. A certificate from President Truman, a cap, sand from Omaha Beach. However, the most profound memories of war are inside the mind and heart of 93-year-old Willie Williams.
Yeah, you think about all that stuff. I tell you, you go crazy, too, if you think about it too much.
Williams hit Omaha Beach D-Day +1, June 7th, 1944. The Allies had taken the beach, yet miles away, the Germans were still firing. What did you see on the coastline?
I couldn't see too much or nothing right where they were shelling so bad. You see where a shell hit here and yonder in the water.
Finally on shore, he saw the first of the 35 young men the small town of Bedford, Virginia would lose.
First guy that I saw dead was one of them laying that side of the road with that 29th Division patch on there and blood running out of his ear down his face. It done got dry on there.
You see, Williams was the messenger. By walkie-talkie, he kept his platoon in touch, in step with headquarters. The fighting was intense. And you were under fire.
That's right, yeah.
And you're 23 years old.
Yeah.
Was there a time you thought, I may not make it out of here?
Oh, yeah, you do it every one while, and you get up in the morning and say you made it through one more day. Thank the Lord, one more day.
He made 54 days at Normandy, then on to 3 more battles. Yet Normandy is the place he remembers most and is still haunted by those memories. 10 years ago, Willie Williams returned to Omaha Beach, the hell of war still evident in his mind.
I walked up there kind of by myself and looked back out across there. It's something. I'm sorry. But the people just don't know what to go through with it up there.
Williams is proud of his service. Humility has kept many of the memories inside. And he finished our talk with this stark message of war.
It's all real, though. There won't no ifs and ands and buts about it. It was real.
As we celebrate Memorial Day tonight, we are on the record with 2 local veterans as they return to Vietnam.
It's time to go on the record with WRAL News.
But when you stepped back onto Vietnamese soil, Leonard, what did it feel like?
I was real shaky, real nervous.
Clarence Williams and Leonard Peoples, as I mentioned, you are my colleagues, you're my peers. I'm honored to work with both of you every day. Both of you bring joy to our newsroom. You make us laugh, you make us think, you challenge us. We are so grateful for your service to this country and what you've done and what you've sacrificed. And thanks for coming on to tell your stories tonight. You honor me.